Hello, my name's Simon Caine, and welcome to the Ask the Industry podcast, episode 32. For those of you new to the show, this is the podcast where I interview the most influential people from the worlds of stand-up, comedy, radio, TV, and today, touring. This podcast is a little bit different to one of our usual ones. It's a live Q&A panel that was recorded at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival 2015. Really quick thank you to Daryl Martin and Martin England for sorting out a room and setting up all the kit and just helping me out with stuff that was just way beyond my technical skill set and probably still is. They've probably shown me it half a dozen times and I felt very much like my dad being shown how to send an email. So thank you very much for being patient with me and sorting that out. The guests themselves are going to introduce themselves in a minute. I'm barely on this podcast, to be honest with you. The way we ran the Q&A was I passed around a mic and allowed the guests to answer the questions direct from the audience. So obviously there'll be voices changing all the time, but the four guests themselves stay consistent. And it's a really interesting one. If you're someone who is looking at touring a show on your own, or if you're looking at getting someone from a touring agency or from someone or just a professional at touring, this could be a PR person. We have a PR person on the panel. This could be a agent, a producer, all that kind of stuff. They're all on this podcast. So if you are looking at touring a show, it's pretty good for that. If you're someone who knows someone who's looking at touring a show and doesn't really know where to get started, this might be really helpful for you. So I hope you enjoy it. Please take a moment while I'm rambling on and open up iTunes and please rate it. You can do this just simply by clicking, if you've got an iTunes account, simply by clicking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, depending on what you think it's worth. And if you have an extra minute, it would be amazing if you could just write a little bit of a review and maybe even who you'd like to see in a future podcast. You know, it'd be great to hear. I love this episode and it'd be great to hear more from these people, just so I have a little bit more feedback. And also it's really great for the future guests to read. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you are the first to find out when a new episode is out. Without any more delays, this was our first live Q&A.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everybody. My name's Anita Holmes. I'm an international life coach. I support artists' well-being and helping them get from A to B in their chosen fields and deliver on their objectives and help them through the challenges of unthinkable schedules and achieving what they set out to achieve in their careers.
I'm Amee Smith. I'm the Associate Director of Prospero Arts PR company. We've been at the Fringe this is our 10th year now, and my 5th with this company.
I'm Mick Perrin from Mick Perrin Worldwide. I'm a producer and promoter, and I seem to make things happen without having any. We promote and we produce. We got 12, 13 acts here in Edinburgh this year, and I've been here since it began.
I'm Ali Wilson. I work for CKP and I'm their head of live, so I look after all of our Edinburgh live shows and touring acts throughout the country. The company is also an agency, so we work in tandem, the two sides together. We've been at the Fringe for about 15 years and I've been here for 10 of them.
I'll probably start then with you on the question of if you were an agency as well as a promoter, how often do you deal with someone that you're not representing, and how often do you deal with people that you've taken on board as an act?
Current ratio is probably about 80% of the people we represent directly. We do occasionally pick up tours from other agencies and things that we work quite closely with. That sort of obviously changes from year to year depending on who from our roster is touring and things like that. But generally the focus, our main focus tends to be touring our in-house acts and dealing with those directly.
Sorry. And you said that you're a promoter as well as a manager. Can you define the difference between the two roles for people that maybe don't know?
Well, I'm a promoter and a producer, but also recently we're also an agency. So I'll explain both. A promoter is somebody who will take an act from an agency and promote their tour or their show. So basically, they will pay and cover all the costs of a show and a tour. And then they obviously do a deal with the agents and the act, and at the end of the day, they'll sort the deal out. So a producer is someone who puts the package or the show together. So for instance, I produce a show called La Soirée. I'm a co-producer of that with other producers. So we have to raise all of the capital. We have to get the cast together. We have to do everything basically, do the advertising, blah, blah, blah. and then eventually we put the show on. So we risk all the capital in order to produce the show and make the show, choose a director, etc., etc. So that's a really much more major thing to take on board than just promoting someone. And in terms of management, we've just opened a management to take on only international acts, so mostly second language people who want to do the show in English, and we just opened up because we now tour in 26 countries.
So in terms of, so you put together the promotional packages for your tours and acts. How does it work when you get PR involved? Do you do that in-house, or is it a case of you would go out to...
Well, I would approach somebody like Amee to do the PR for the act, or the act will already have a PR in place. So it depends at what point you're starting. If it's a very young act and they have no one, and it's the first time, say, in Edinburgh, or they want to go to Edinburgh, then from that point on you will be talking to them about how you create the world that they want to operate in, and so we'll introduce them to good people, and obviously Amee is one of those.
And when you get involved in that part of the promotional process, do you go and see the show? What's like the A to B for that for a performer if you've not been involved up to that point?
Yeah, we definitely see the show before we can work with it, because we have to know that it's someone that we can be genuinely enthusiastic about. With the relationship that we have as a PR with our press contacts is that they trust what we're telling them that we think about the show. So we definitely make sure we see things, we work with things that we can have that genuine enthusiam about to say.
Yeah,
so that when we say this show is good, we want our press contacts to know that we believe that.
And they say no sometimes too.
PRs are known to turn down shows if they don't like them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's absolutely the best thing to do.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to work with a PR who kind of got forced into taking someone. They're never going to be able to sell them as much as someone who loves what they do. Yeah,
you want people to be excited and overjoyed because they've got to work with them, as we are. So if we choose an actor or an act chooses us and we get on great, then we're completely committed to that for life, really. Yeah. So we want to get somebody on board and a whole team on board who are also committed.
Yeah.
Okay. And at what point in someone's either career or life cycle of a show should they approach like a touring manager or a PR person or even a life coach to try and get them past the stumbling block of maybe believing they can't sell off their own name or they don't know if they could do a tour or if they're prepared for that?
How long's a piece of string, I think, to be perfectly honest. There's people that can come to you when they've got a fully formed show. The classic thing is they have a fantastic Edinburgh and then they want to take it further. I know that you work with Louisa and things like that. And but then there's people right from day one working with our sort of the agency side of things. You know that your act is brilliant and you start from day one going, we'd like to put together a show. What's this show going to be? Usually those tours then sort of start in Edinburgh and then go forward. So that can be from a little germ onwards, essentially. I don't think there's a fixed point, definitely.
Yeah, and also if you're any good at your job, you wouldn't want to push too far. You wouldn't want to push too quickly. No. I mean, I see fantastic acts who've got a great 20 minutes, a great 25 minutes, but doing a great hour, that's a hell of a leap. So some people tend to come in too early, and in a sense they kind of blow their Edinburgh. I would say don't come in maybe for a couple of years, or come and do 40 minutes, come under the radar, don't be eligible for the competition.
Because and I think I think a part of our role is as those professional advisors to, like you say, respect the act and their opinion, but also be very much on hand to guide them when it might be too early, when they're ready or not.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a guy in Montreux in Switzerland in December, an American guy. I'd never seen him before. I was on a panel, and he was great. He was absolutely fantastic, and he was emailing saying he's thinking of coming over to the Free Fringe and he was going to do his show, and he booked him for an hour. And basically between then and coming into Edinburgh, I talked him out of doing that. I talked him into doing 40 minutes and not doing the whole run and coming in under the radar. And he's so pleased about that now because he's got a great 40 minutes. But my God, he'll have a fantastic hour when he comes next year. Now with me, hopefully, and therefore he hasn't blown his opportunities with Foster's and all the competition stuff. And other acts are getting to know who he is. He can come over to London maybe and start working on the circuit and doing 10 and 15-minute spots. So it's so important. So that's what people like us are good at. It's that advice really that maybe
Don't just
you're
rush
not
it through.
sure.
Don't rush it through.
Don't rush it through.
There's nothing.
What's the
There's no rush.
It's a lifetime. You're going to be doing this for a lifetime.
Especially with the newcomer thing. I think I'm sure, Amy, you'd agree that there's something about that newcomer year that you'll kind of never get twice, and that it's that much easier to get the sort of press attention,
Absolutely.
to get features and things like that. And that's a real shame to waste that. I think, and I think people can go in too hard, too fast, and think, oh, I've got an hour, it's fine. I've done it at Leicester Festival, and it's all good. But I think it's if you're kind of going to do it to make the biggest impact for the rest of your career, I think it's something that you really kind of you use a war chest and you kind of approach it as a sort of, an end goal. Yeah.
I think the classic example is the wonderful Alex Edelman. And now Alex came over and he worked on his art, didn't he? I mean, he obviously he's a very talented young comic, but he obviously worked on his art. And he came over and worked in London. He never performed the hour unless he did it in a tiny pub somewhere just before Edinburgh. And then when he came to Edinburgh, he just went bang. He just went, wow, fantastic! What an act! And then he's come back again a second year and done the same thing again. I brought who was a totally unknown Trevor Noah in 2 years ago or 2 years ago, and nobody heard of this guy. And suddenly, he performs this amazing out, and everybody's open mouthed. It's great when you see that happen, but that's not someone who's just come in and spent 5 minutes on their show. They spent probably years on it before they thought that they were good enough to come to Edinburgh. So that's how I would like anybody to think, and anyone who's considering doing Edinburgh, you think of it like this is going to be my profession. And Ali's absolutely right. You don't blow it. You just don't blow that first one. Newcomer is a big deal here. Getting the press, you won't get the press a second time, but you'll get it all the first time.
Absolutely,
if you're any good. So use
and it's not even about awards generally. I mean, there's sort of, if we're getting Edinburgh centric, absolutely, an Edinburgh centric sort of thing is. I always think of the way to approach it as an act is you're sort of buying a stall at a trade fair by coming here, for various reasons. But I think that's how to approach it as professionally as possible and with a sort of slightly methodical mindset to make sure that you're not only just you're getting nice full rooms, you're getting the right industry in to see you, you're getting the press in to see you, and that is the stuff that will carry on throughout the rest of your career. It's not even necessarily about newcomer nominations or anything like that. They're lovely, but it's a good Edinburgh will start you off for the rest of your career, essentially.
And also, just a final comment, if I may, Si, in the same respect of preparation, the old adage is fail to prepare, prepare to fail, in that your body is yourself and your well-being and your mind and your energy resources and your whole attitude and approach. Your ability to deliver really is as important. Obviously, a life coach is bound to say this, but in respect of the art, the craft that you guys are speaking about, which is your side and area of expertise, obviously the comedic value, expertise, capability is that's your product which you bring into market, and the vehicle is of course oneself. And obviously as a life coach it's imperative to be ready and primed and do your research. The comments, this is my first year at Ed and it's fantastic to be here, but I founded Infinity Corporate Training 20 years ago, and I'm founder. I'm a bit slow because I've been in hospital all night with concussion so I have apparently delayed cognitive function, so as long as I don't come out with peculiar words, as Amy was saying, her partner had post-concussion syndrome. Apparently I've got that as well, and I couldn't tell the doctor what a pen was in the hospital, but anyway, there we go. If I come out with something really ridiculous, then I'm sure I'll get some raised eyebrows in the audience and you'll be able to but tell me I've said something quite outrageous. But just back to the preparation, a lot of people that have said to me, clients and non-clients, that I've been immensely surprised how tiring, how hectic, how unmanageable, how this, how that, how the other. Do your research, do your homework, talk to, find out what is necessary, and do a health check and health scan, and basically get yourself, your mind, your energy levels, your well-being ready. And then actually, if you've done an Ed and it's been immensely taxing in one way or another, and the whole, covers a whole raft of individual responses or inability to cope, then for next year, and that's typically when I might be consulted as a life coach to help regroup or improve or cope or work with people before they get to the Fringe. But it's a bit like, in summary to that comment, just on the back of yours, sort of the personal well-being as well as the comedic ability. You wouldn't dream of buying we would if we've not got it's about the difference between buying a car with a full service history versus one without clearly one's going to deliver better ride and a better performance.
I mean, the thing about Edinburgh is essentially what you're saying is Edinburgh can break you if you're not ready for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, I mean,
Indeed.
We're all on board with that. I mean, and we've all been broken. I mean, I've had acts here, and I certainly wouldn't mention any names, but I've had one day of joy and the next day of tears. I mean, you know, almost through the whole festival, and it's almost unmanageable. But you know, there's great expectations here, and
great
not
things
everybody's
to be achieved as well. And it's
well,
a shame
some will be achieved, but obviously they're surrounded by people who are achieving. You know, somebody who gets a 4-star review, who's a mate of somebody who gets a 1-star review. How close are they going to be? You know, on the day that these are both published, maybe by the same critic. You know, so it's a really tough psychological battle that you're going through. And of course, as a promoter or a producer, you're living this with them daily. You're getting one phone call from one person who's elated, and the next phone call from someone who's completely deflated. And it's really hard to kind of build yourself up as a promoter. Where we love them all. So.
And that's my job. That's what I do.
I think it's part of everybody's job, making sure that acts particularly have their expectations managed, so that you're reminding people that it is a step in a process of your career. It's not everything that you're trying to achieve in the whole of your career is not going to happen within 1 month. And if things don't go right this month, that's not the end of the world. There are things you can do to fix it. It will
really
be okay.
Yeah,
tomorrow won't matter.
They don't know what they're talking about.
How
A lot of that.
As a PR, how do you deal with, so say your acts are starting to get, like, obviously, I hope this never happened, but say your acts are starting to get like very negative reviews. How do you deliver that news, knowing that everyone's in a very fragile space up here, and it's obviously quite you got to handle that in a certain way?
Well, from before people even get to the Fringe, we're very careful about making sure that people know what information they want and when. So do acts, obviously you guys as promoters and producers have to know when press are in, so that if you've got a day where there are particularly low sales, you can do something to turn that around, because obviously having an audience in a show is better than performing to just one person who happens to be the person reviewing you. But making sure that acts know, do you want to know when press are in, or would you rather not, so that every audience is the same? Do you want to know when reviews are out? If it's an act who doesn't have somebody like Ali or Mick to work with, then when they have reviews that are published, if they're 4s and 5 stars, that they can use those on their posters and their flyers, they're going to have to know about them, because it's going to be their responsibility to get them stapled and glued onto things. If they have the luxury of somebody doing that for them, then you can, if you want to, spend the month blissfully unaware of anything that's going on and just focus on your show. So understanding whether a performer is going to find any kind of criticism constructive and use that to improve a show, or to change it in a way that they want to, or whether they will take any criticism to heart and suddenly their show is going to fall apart because they're just trying to change everything to what everybody says. You have to remember that it's... You just have to remember that every review that comes out is still one person's opinion, and you might value the publication that it's from, or you might value the particular journalist that's writing, but it's still that one person, and you still have to perform to the rest of your audience, and not everybody is going to love you all of the time.
We had one of our ex-partners approached one of our flyers and said, listen, can I have a look at the flyer, because they won't tell me how what the reviews are, and I just walk past and I see you've got loads of stars on it. So obviously the act is not reading any of these things, and not even telling their partner how it's going. And yet there's flyers going around with like 6, 4 and 5 star reviews, and they go, my God, they're doing well. And they don't know. So that's the mentality of some people, that they just don't want to know, because if they read the first one and it's something negative in there about a piece of the show, that's going to affect them all the way through. Some people can take that. Some people can think, okay, well, I can work with that. Maybe they're right, or decide if the review is any good, because there's some awful reviewers here, terrible ones. I've written so many letters, emails, and never sent any of them to reviewers. It's just to get it out of my system. And it basically is a series of 4-letter words ending in a 4-letter word.
Please check your grammar.
It's just because it's rubbish. They are dreadfully written. There's the sort of thing we talked about this the other day about someone, didn't we? Just awful. We went, this is awful. Is this a child? Is this a child writing this? It gets you so angry because of the work that's gone into these shows and the emotion that's involved in it, and then somebody goes in and they're not reviewing the show, they're saying the room's hot. Of course the room's hot.
Yes.
in the bubble of Edinburgh, it feels obviously the industry is very geared towards hours up here of shows, and obviously the awards are obviously linked into that quite heavily. Outside of Edinburgh, how much do awards actually help sell tours, and how much do people really know, like around the country, what's going on in this little bubble that we have?
I think it could be a cumulative effect thing. I think this is something also to do with the well-being thing. I think people do, especially acts, can get quite focused on the awards from Edinburgh, and actually 11 months out of things, it's another thing on the poster, but I don't know, even winners, it doesn't necessarily sell a regional tour, around a country on the back of something like that. But I think great cumulative press is really, really helpful, and obviously then anything which then helps you get more exposure and profile around the country, that's the thing that tends to sell things off the back.
That's absolutely right.
I think, Ali, our worlds are very complementary, of course, which is why we're all sitting on this stage together. But I think the big thing to keep in mind is keep it in perspective. In my side of the business as well as yours, it is not the be-all and end-all, is it? The awards are just part of the picture.
The awards are, what it does give you, an award or a nomination, is it will always give you a coverage in the preview press. So if you pick up the Guardian on a Saturday, for instance, and you've got a tour going for a first-time act that was nominated or won, you know that there's going to be preview in there. But if you look through the years about who's been nominated or even won something, there's very few people.
It's not a direct correlation, really. No, not at all.
But if you've got somebody who's nominated or won something, and they've done some TV, for instance, I look after Sarah Pascoe. And last year, she was nominated, and we did her first tour this year, and it was incredibly successful. But that's because if you look at what Sarah's been doing over the years, producing great shows, getting known, being on panel shows, bits of telly here and there, radio. If you put all that together, that entitles you or gives you the opportunity to do your first tour.
And actually, also, I think it's also about good PR and how you promote yourself if you're not finalist, winner and achiever, actually successful in the awards. It's not what you do, it's how you do it, not what you say, it's how you say it. You can actually use that as positive PR as well. And back into life coaching, it's number one about attitude. The success formula is 80% attitude, 10% skills and 10% knowledge. And you can learn knowledge, be taught skills, but it comes success and getting where you want to get in life is all about having an objective and somebody skilled and expert helping you produce that roadmap and getting you there. No matter how good the life coach is, or the individual without the right attitude. Obviously, a good life coach can develop the right attitude without the right attitude, no matter how many reviews or accolades or awards you've won or not. It's about turning good news bad news into good, or making a point about finding the USP and the differentiator. So would you agree with that, guys? It's not about winning, it's about the traditional, sports adage. It's about playing, it's being out there and doing it, but taking the message and putting the message out there in the right way, even if they're not a winner or a finalist.
But I think also very much understanding the game. The idea of knowledge is incredibly important.
There's a phrase I have, being talented at being talented. So that is really important, and I think that that maybe comes back to a more holistic thing, that it's always great to work with acts who are pretty self-aware, and also sort of the term finding your voice, and that comes down to from a sheer sort of what we do is largely sales, so it's finding that angle that you can push. It's not just about having a generic award, or even just lots of people have been on Live at the Apollo and Mock the Week now. It's about working out what the angle is on those people, who that audience is, and how you're going to get to
sure it's finding your audience, isn't it?
There's another phrase as well. Is the ego larger than the talent?
Yeah. And how true is that?
Does anyone have a question from the floor?
Not yet.
Not yet? Oh, go on.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if this is a bit early.
Hi, Becky.
Hello. Just about doing tour support. So, say you're not ready to tour yet, obviously. How do you get to do tour support?
Sorry, when you're supporting an act on tour?
Shall I repeat that, Simon, for the podcast? Sorry, Mick. Just to say that Becky Brunning has asked, how do you... would you like to repeat the question? This is your podcast.
Thank you. It's going to be fun to edit. I think what you're asking is if you've been offered a tour support slot or you've been offered to go around on a tour with another act, how do you capitalise on that? Or how do you know if you're ready for that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The second question or the first one?
Well, you may as well do both.
We'll do both. How do you capitalise on that, maybe to help build your own audience, but also how do you know if you're ready? I mean, obviously they think you're ready, but if you feel like maybe you've got the imposter syndrome going on and you're not quite sure it's for you.
Well, I mean, there are many routes to that. I mean, obviously one route to it is that you're in, we call it a stable. You're in a stable, part of a management system, and your management have a big act, and the act wants to have a support, and so you present one of the acts from your stable to the support and hope that they get on, hope they like each other, hope that the two acts complement each other, and then they will support the tour. The act may often have somebody that they've spotted somewhere, which is generally the way I work because I'm a promoter and not a manager. So, the acts I work with will say, hey, or have I spotted someone, or they will come up with someone. So that's a good thing. It's generally somebody that is very different than they are. So if you're in a position where you're an act and you're a quick-fire gagsmith, then you might well have somebody up who's a bit more physical
or storytelling, anecdotal,
Exactly. So it's about finding that, because what you're trying to do is to please your audience, but not overexcite them, because you're going to come on at the end of the day. So there is that, that old band syndrome where they used to do the sound check for the support acts, but they always give them, like a 20% lower level than the main act, and they thought that it's a little bit like that. But that would be cruel to say it's over and above, because obviously the main act always believes that they're the big act, and quite frankly, that's why people are paying to get in to see. So.
And in terms of PRing something like that, do you like sort of, how can I put this? Because they're linked together usually in terms of management and work being represented together, do you like sort of push out the support act as much as, like, obviously not as much, but in the same way that you would with have you got a roadmap is what I'm saying for like that person?
For the support act? No, in terms of a tour PR wise, the main act is the selling point for that, and it shouldn't really make a difference press wise who their support is, because it's them that we're selling to the press, and it's them that local people in whichever area are going to be buying tickets to see. But that doesn't mean that by next year, if the support act has grown and developed and has their own show, that it's not going to then be important to mention, and they also supported these people last year and used the experience that they've built up to give gravitas to their own name. But until they've got a product of their own to sell, they're helping to sell somebody else's product.
I suppose it comes down to what you were saying before, where it's like you can have a really good 20 minutes, which could be an opening for a show, but you might not have the hour, which means that you're ready to do the tour, but you're not ready to do the tour. And at the same time, you're building your own audience.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a great way. Like, support slots are a really good way to kind of take baby steps to get used to. They're often bigger rooms than the acts used to playing, and playing to audiences that have kind of bought a ticket to see a specific thing rather than going to see a comedy club and they happen to be on the bill. So it's a different kind of, it's a really good way to start learning the stage techniques and things that you really can only do by doing it, if you know what I mean. And then I always think that sort of stands you in good stead when you do start thinking, going on to your touring thing, you already have a sort of feel for art centres or theatres and things like that. And that's...
Well, a few years ago, I don't know how many years ago, 5-6 years ago, we had Reginald D. Hunter doing a tour and supported by Sarah Millican. I mean, imagine that.
Wow.
And look at Sarah now. She's doing okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's worth mentioning that the comics on sports tours do have to understand the difference in the money, but they normally do, because as Mick was referring, I mean, when I was in a band years ago, you had to buy onto a support. Yeah. You actually had to pay to support somebody because there was so much demand until there was. Just saying that when. Sorry, I'll stand here. I was just trying to say that when I used to play in bands, which I did some time back, we had to buy onto a support tour with Hazel O'Connor at the time it was. So because she'd had some hits and was selling out 2,000 or 3,000 seat rooms, our management had to pay for us to support her. So that's not necessarily what's happening. What I'm saying is people who are offered a support with a big name act have to immediately be advised by their agent and get a grasp of the fact they're getting a fraction of the money because of the fact that guy is selling the tickets and they're in some ways fortunate to be on the same stage in the same room, and so they have to mentally be adjusted to the fact, this is what you'll get paid, and you may be playing in front of 2,000 people, but this is an opportunity for you. You're still making money, not losing money, possibly getting a hotel or whatever. So it's a good opportunity. But I think some acts, in their own right, are quite good already. Don't understand that if they support someone higher up the tree, that they will be earning very minimal money to be on that tour. That's all I want to say.
That's a very good. Can I just small? Yes, absolutely. It's a very good point, Jeff. Thank you. A good example of that is Ariel Dundas. I'm on the Hague Hague Comedy Festival Committee, and we're bringing a very young act over from Holland today. She's arriving today, and she's doing a 10-minute slot for Christian Schulterlo. And a lot of my work, I'm on the committee, and I'm their life coach and help young acts throughout Europe come through and prepare for the Fringe, and she's a good example. And she's an up-and-coming act, but a lot of my work on the committee and as their advisor and support to new talent is to help them prepare mentally and help them to understand what to expect, when to book the flight, how to come well and hit the ground running with very little experience. An open 10 is for her a huge, huge deal, as it is to a lot of young and up-and-coming acts. But she's, like you were saying, Jeff, to be paid. She's invested a huge amount of money for her coming over from Europe, and spent many weeks preparing mentally and physically, and a lot of investment has gone into her well-being to do that. And I think a lot of young acts forget that sort of mental, physical, and well-being preparation as well.
Definitely. And it sounds like how would you always pick someone to tour support from, like, one of your fellow acts, like, that you represent or that you already have a tour for, to kind of help out your
you'd like to encourage it if possible, but you wouldn't push at all. And also I have to say, Jeff, in the comedy business you'd never charge a support. You actually pay the support act very well if it's it's a
there's
very
also
different
an element
industry.
that it fills your diary as well. So there's
it fills your diary
when we have a support,
and you're playing in front of 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever, and and I like that. That's what I love. I was a musician too, and that's what I love about comedy, that there isn't all that bollocks, basically.
Yeah, very important.
Fair enough. Any other questions from the floor?
On the topic of sort of touring, when you're advertising a tour, I'm just wondering how much maybe the techniques and the amount of effort involved differ between, like, advertising for a large town versus a small town, sort of where you just sort of got an art centre, maybe not so much competition.
Sorry, can I just repeat the question?
Sorry,
that's okay. So what you're basically asking is, how much does the size of the location or the size of the venue affect the way you'd promote the show?
Yeah, I'd say the size of the town as a whole, sort of say, like Manchester versus Aberystwyth, for example, is a massive difference.
Well, I would say those specific examples, like Aberystwyth, is kind of a captive audience as well. I know Aberystwyth very well, so even though their population is incredibly, relatively small, there are ways and means to get everyone to go to the Aberystwyth Arts Centre. So in sort of answer to that, I guess I would probably look at it personally from the size of the venue would affect how I would advertise for it, because ultimately that's sort of your end objective, to come to that. That's what you're trying to sort of fill. But you would bespoke for every town, and there'll just be different approaches. That's why you have like a tour manager and promoter that knows little tricks, like Aberystwyth is a small place, but it's got a lot of students and that sort of thing. So I don't know if you could one size fits all. I just don't think that works.
No, the way a tour works is basically you put together an overall marketing spend in your press. So you've got your press working in all those areas, whether it's Aberystwyth or Manchester or Liverpool, exactly the same. Is the local paper going to pick it up? You've got the national press, you've got your local press. But what all the venues have is their own brochure Now, if you don't make the brochure, especially in the smaller places, the art centres, you won't sell a ticket. Doesn't matter what you do in the town. If it's not in the brochure, because everybody goes to that theatre, especially in Aberystwyth or Llandudno or wherever. That's the theatre. That's
their night out.
That's their night out. That's what they're going to do. And if you're not in the brochure, you're not going to sell. So the most important thing is to be in the brochure. To get in the brochure, you need to know about the gig at least 6 months in advance.
At least, yeah.
Which is our problem, because, of course, acts can't make up their minds. No, don't worry. I'll stand by that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so it takes so long to get commitments, and of course you've got this deadline running as a promoter. You can't miss the brochure. You can't miss the brochure.
It is like an oil tanker.
Brochure.
You do have to,
Move
like,
on.
it corners, like, it seems like it just starts a tour, but it corners like a cow.
Yeah.
You have to, like, you have to think.
It comes down to preparation as well.
Short, medium,
Yeah.
and long
Yeah.
term, that sort of thing. You start talking about it maybe a year in advance.
Absolutely.
You start penciling things in, then you get
Sure.
a commitment, and then that starts becoming a
And then, of
pen
course,
and-
they want the print as well on top of that.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and,
good
and
bonus,
you know,
really.
you're waiting for a photograph, and then you're waiting to design the photograph. And
And there's
then
this
that
lovely
goes back
week
and
where it
forth.
all comes together and all the final things get, and you're like, right, go.
Yeah. And then there's a colour change wanted, or a
Oh, yeah.
size of type wanted, because
The font's not right.
the name's not big enough. And then you're really sweating because you're not going to get the print out. You're not in the brochure. So yes, I mean this is you know that this is the producer, the promoter's nightmare really of trying to play these venues. You know you can sell it because the act is good and they'll go there, but it's getting all the stuff out.
You just got to get the
And so
mechanism
it's
and
an
the system
overall-
up. Yeah.
It's an overall budget, and then you spread it. Obviously, you'll spend more in Manchester because you'll take out a big ad in the Manchester Evening News, whereas in Llandudno or Aberystwyth, maybe a local ad, or you may not need it at all. So you sort of separate like that, but the overall budget is what you work with, and then of course press, the most important thing on a small tour.
Yeah, it can make a massive difference having a performer interview with the local paper that everyone reads, whereas if they don't, you're just relying on the brochure or someone happening to see a poster, and the paper's delivered to the house and they read it online at home, whereas if they've not left the house for the week, they've not seen the poster, they've not seen the brochure. So working with you guys to know
It's a very key part of
what
marketing.
dates you need extra press for, so that
And
you can
things
push for
like
more tickets.
competitions and
Yeah,
radio
ticket
shout-outs
giveaways,
and,
radio
all these
interviews,
things. Very key.
and working with the venues themselves. They will often have in-house press and marketing who have great
Who's all
links
the
with their
businesses,
local press
yeah.
already. So as a PR, it's often my job to liaise with the venue press to say, that journalist that you already have a great relationship with, I'm not going to step on your toes and take that over to say, I'm PRing this tour, it must go through me. But I will definitely help you to get the act to speak to them at the time that's convenient for them, so that your audience see the interview. And the same, I'm sure, with marketing as well, that they already know that they've got
Well, it's about how
reciprocal
willing the
deals
act
with
is
papers
as well to
and
involve themselves
yeah.
in your press, because look,
got
to
to
be
take
honest, with a
personal
small tour,
commitment as well,
press is
hasn't it?
free. Press is free.
Free marketing, yeah.
You know, everything else is spend. So, and I often say to acts, you say, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that." And you say, "Well, okay, well,
Comes
I'm
right down
happy
to
to put
attitude.
the
Yeah.
ad in the paper, but it's going to cost me £5,000. It's going to cost the tour £5,000. But you can talk to someone, and it will sell more than £5,000 worth of tickets just by you being there. So it's up to you. If you want to get out of bed, save
20
£5,000,
minutes out of your
or-
life. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it can come down to that in the end.
It's the personal touch, because like
Yeah.
they feel like it's like with bands where they used to do the magazine interviews, and you used to feel a bit more connected with them because you used to spend time reading it and knowing that they've said these things, rather than just an advert in the middle of a big half-page thing,
And also holistically, from the angle that sort of we're coming from, where we have an agency side, a live side, all that local press then becomes something that builds their profile more and more and more. And I think that live and agency side move very closely together. All that local press will then become something that when they release their debut DVD, people in Rochester and around the country, Gloucester and all these things, have already had a bit of a sort of touched base with this act, and they're in their mind. So that's something that also
it's
boosts
nice.
your
It's nice
career.
for people to remember that I spoke to that person. That's someone that I actually sat down and had a conversation with, or I spent 10 minutes on the phone, and now they've gone on to something else. So
Absolutely.
the next time you come back, they're happy to talk to you again,
Yeah.
because you're the person that they spoke to 2 years ago,
You sort of
and have now
discovered
done
them.
even
Yeah,
worse.
it's nice, yeah.
You have that sense of, we discovered you and helped you on that journey.
And the opposite is also true, of course, is if they have, they just got out of bed and they've done an interview with someone on the radio and they're really grumpy. I mean, the act is.
Yeah.
And the reviewer and reporter can't get anything from them. Then the next time that they come back, they won't want to know.
Yeah.
They won't want to know, and that happens too.
Which is where that ability to get up in the morning fresh from perhaps a very, very heavy night, the night before, too much alcohol, not enough sleep.
Most nights.
Absolutely. Well, not every night. perhaps some sort of depressive disorder, which obviously in the business is quite common and frequent, emotional baggage, financial worries, a host of well-being issues that we have as a human race. But just to reflect back on these guys' side of the business, I feel it's sort of 75%, and perhaps a 25% representation of looking after oneself. I liked Ali's reference to mechanism. Lots and lots of clients say to me, that's too much hassle. I haven't got time for exercise. I couldn't be bothered looking after my diet. Quick, fast food. I couldn't be bothered with supplements, fresh air, time out, meditation, exercise, rest. Simple strategies, but it's a mechanism in terms of looking after yourself and one's well-being and mental state and health and energy levels and resources, which are across a raft of resources is comprehensive in itself. It's a mechanism, getting a system and a process in place for one's self that works, that's highly effective and becomes routine and habit, and then you're firing on all 8 cylinders every day without fail, and it becomes a habit, rather like one's physiological state. Homeostasis is our body's own system of regulating our temperature, our breathing. We don't think about, I've just had a meal, let's digest that food. It happens automatically. We don't think about cooling ourselves down. Our perspiration systems happen automatically, and that's what good self-care is all about. And I like your word mechanism, so I just wanted to reflect back on that. It's very overlapping, and the acts that I work with have come for help, but a lot of acts out there forget that the thing that physically is up there, coming up on stage and coming to you guys for help, is actually where it all starts.
It's comparison, but in a prison there's a chaplain, they go and see. I just wonder, I'm not aware of an agency that has a sort of life coach attached to them, which in a way to me would seem quite a good idea, in the sense that because I'm a comedian, and I've been mixed between comedians for the last 18 years. Let's be honest, comedians are often, troubled. They often have mood swings. Some have drink-related issues, and you have to change that. And it seems odd that an agency might have, well, certainly the large ones could have 40 acts, but there's no sort of not counsellor. There's no life coach involved. There's nobody attached to that agency where if they get an act with personal issues, whether that's affecting their on-stage performance, they say, well, it's okay, we've got somebody in our team who you can talk to, who can work on that with you. And I thought big agencies who have budgets, I'm surprised they don't have life coaches somewhere in their team, or people somewhere in their team. I realise that the agents do it themselves, but what I mean is, a lot of the agents aren't expert life coaches. I mean, I manage acts, my company does, but I can tell them from knowledge as a comic what I think they should do next, or how they should handle a difficult gig, or a bad situation, or personal problems, or divorce, or anything. But I'm not an expert. But whereas there are life coaches who've done this with all sorts of people, from sports to performing, or politicians who could apply those skills just to comics, who could narrow it down and just narrow down the skills to getting a handle on comics and being attached to an agency. And so, rather than the person whose job is to get them work and further their careers having to be sidelined by saying, I need to spend 2 hours on the phone talking to a guy because he's just said he's going to kill himself, rather than that, get the life coach on the phone and say, go and talk to this act, he's having problems, I need to be worrying about promoting his tour, you talk to him about his life situation and bring it, and that life coach could bring them through that. Because I know agents that spend hours and hours on the phone to comics about their personal life to try and stabilise them when they should be promoting them, but they don't have any sort of expertise in their team.
I think one of the, from my knowledge, I think one of the most famous examples of that was when Russell Brand was really on drugs and drink and stuff, and I think it was No. I can't remember. Is it No? What's the agency? No, is it No Gay or is it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. His agency just said, you're going into rehab because we can't deal with you until we've sorted that out. And it was obviously it's worked out quite well for him as well. But it's one of those things. I mean, what do you guys think of the having someone on your team that can deal with the well-being as well as the admin and business side of it?
Could I just put a very, very quick point in there to support your comments there, Jeff? Though I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and I had a 2-hour conversation with a TV name who was on the point of not being able to deliver on a very, very lucrative project. And they were talking to me about committing suicide, and had I not been able to take that call, then they possibly wouldn't be here today. So over to whoever would like to.
I don't really have anything to do with that side of it, because, as I say, I'm a promoter, and I would expect the agent and the management to be able to deal with that. I obviously I'm aware of the suicide rate in the industry, and listen, acts, particularly stand-up acts, are very often highly strung people. This is one of the reasons why they go on stage. I mean, I know acts. I know acts that throw it before they go on and throw it when they come off, but when they're on stage, you think they're the most confident person in the world.
Vomiting and some not, absolutely.
Yeah. So, also I spent over 25 years as a tour manager, so I toured with these acts around the world. So I've seen it all, and I've seen what they've gone through, and I've had to get people onto planes, off planes, out of hotel rooms, away from people, away from all sorts of things. So, you do learn that, but I've never in my experience found anybody with any connection to a life coach or anything outside of their own psychotherapist, really, which is often what
and it's certainly an interesting idea. We're a smaller sort of more boutique agency, so we don't have anyone specific. I mean, you always have open, honest conversations with all your acts, and that's the best way to work collaboratively. But I think that's maybe part of a wider issue about sort of looking after performers' mental health. I think it is important, and it's something that doesn't get talked about an awful lot, and it's absolutely key to keeping yourself in a good place. And so that's definitely something that's worth discussion and a bit more focus on, because I think even in the grander scheme, if you're healthy and happy and calm, you perform better as a human generally, and therefore, it's in your benefit to maintain that yourself with whatever.
Well, it doesn't get talked much about in general society, so why would it be talked about anymore in the world of entertainment or comedy? Although in that world, there's obviously more prevalence.
Say, definitely.
Yeah, but I think breaking the taboos that come with certain subjects that people don't want to talk about is something I think everybody in every industry should be, as people, we should be working towards doing that. When Jeff first asked this question, you had the comparison to a prison chaplain, but that's in a situation where people can't go anywhere else. And in any other industry, you have to let people have that individuality. And I think if it's an enforced care, it's then no more helpful than having no care. So
you have to want to
having access to someone and leaving that as perhaps a personal choice rather than this is our company therapist and you will talk to them is not going to be as helpful as somebody who comes to you as an individual and says, I understand my own problems, this is what I reach for. It was about the
availability and accessibility. It's only like in a hospital or a primary care environment where you've got a holistic aromatherapist or a sports injury massage specialist or a physiotherapist or a reflexologist. It's available as a sort of secondary care.
Yeah.
But as a qualified and experienced counsellor, I find most people find me, everybody finds me. It would be completely unethical and against, all my codes of conduct as an NLP practitioner and hypnotherapist to impose any treatment or guidance or, support on anybody. It's just not how it goes, and we wouldn't be naive or unprofessional enough to ever even consider or doing so.
Yeah, I mean, when I chatted with Neil McKenna at the Fringe office, he was saying they've actually taken some really good steps to try and offer some more facilities for performers, for mental well-being and mental states, for people to go in and make appointments and talk to stuff. I mean, how many performers know about that? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff at the Fringe office that I don't think performers are aware of, and I think that's something that should definitely be pushed more, because, I mean, I've spoken to many acts in this Fringe who have no idea the stuff that the Fringe offers, and most of the events I've gone to at that office have been criminally under-attended, and I just feel there's a scope for it.
Well, it needs to be out there then, doesn't it?
Well, changing the subject slightly, and as is an ask the industry opportunity, I'm not going to miss it. My name's Trish, and I run comedy in the Southwest, specifically Somerset, under the helpful guidance of Jeff. And I struggle to get audiences to come and see normal comedy shows with the top of the UK comedy circuit, to buy tickets, to make it economically viable for me to put these shows on. I struggle to get people to go out and see someone who isn't on the telly, hasn't been on the telly, and I really feel they're missing out on, you know, the cream to the cream. Being on telly to me doesn't make you any funnier at all. And you know what I would really appreciate, and Ali has helped me through CKP with Milton Jones and Mark Watson in the past, is trying to get some of the big names down there to fill the venues up and to hand out leaflets about all the other shows I've got coming up where they perhaps won't know everybody on the bill, because the Southwest, the comedians tend to come down as far as Bristol. They might nip into Yeovil, they go straight past Taunton down to Exeter, Plymouth, and Taunton people, when I travel to see comedy in Bristol, Exeter and all the rest of the places, so many of my family and friends are there, and it's all the travel, and I want to try and boost the economy in Somerset by actually making it almost the Edinburgh of the South, not for a month, but all year round. I couldn't do another month. All year round, with top quality comedy coming down. And I'm wondering if there's any help in the industry to provide some of the bigger names just occasionally to really help raise the profile and put Somerset on the map.
People love a run. I think that especially things like West Country, when you're trying to book in a tour, you obviously have to kind of make sure that your act isn't bouncing all over the country. So if there's any way that you could link into other things going around it, and I know obviously you do the Bath Comedy Festival, anything that has a logical progression where you can kind of all work together, and then you can kind of come with a package almost, especially if you know your local promoters. You can kind of go, look, we've got 4 dates in a row, we've got some hotels, boom, 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 boom.
I think one of the things is acts working on material who will play 300 seat rooms before a tour where they're playing 5,000 or 3,000 seat rooms. In my view, a lot of promoters like Trish and people aren't aware that that's going on. They're not.
Yeah, and that goes on all the time, Trish. That's the point I was going to make, Jeff. I mean, I've got, you know, some big names who go and do their work in progress tours. You know, Eddie Izzard, Dylan Moran, Ross Noble, a whole host of people. Simon Amstel. So they tend to go out and they do their work in progress. And as promoters, we're literally looking for somewhere which is off the map. You know, somewhere where the press don't. No, absolutely. But I mean, I know is it the brew house in Taunton? It's Taunton.
Yep, brew house.
Okay, so I know we use your venue, and we use it for smaller acts, but we also, it would be on the map for our work in progress too. So if we're not,
I've got my cards.
I'll give you my cards. But we got multiple tours going on. But you see, this telly thing that you said, I mean that's my bugbear as well, because most stuff on telly is sanitized, edited rubbish, frankly.
It's not even the best version of the people on telly.
No, exactly, because TV has washed out all of the good,
I agree.
all of the insane, all of the rude, whatever. That's the reason I'm in comedy.
You've completely inspired me, because I was sat there listening to you saying about hitting a deadline for a photograph and print and getting in the brochure.
Because you're on the other end of it.
Well, I am kind of, but I kind of self-publicise everything in Somerset. I'm fairly well known in Taunton. I gave up a 20-year career in the civil service to do this last year. So I've self-funded everything. Thank God I met Jeff 2.5 years ago, and I wouldn't know anything without him. And he's really given me a good grounding. But now I know so many comedians who want to come down, but they've got to then check with their agents and things. And it's kind of
all comics that want to come to a good venue. Honestly, that's what it's about.
I've got
if it's a good venue, I know it's a good venue. I know it's a good venue, and it's in a great place. So
we've got more than that now. We've got Bridgewater Arts Centre, we've got the Tacky Morris Centre, and Taunton is blessed with 2 or 3 large private schools with 500-seater theatres.
I would try and get I think you're absolutely right. I would try and get a little festival going. If you can get a little mini festival going every year, or maybe every other year, something small, but you get some really good acts in, and you get some top names.
I've done it for 2 years. I had Milton first, then Mark. This year I've got Zoe Lyons and John Maloney coming down.
Right.
At the moment,
well, what you're trying to do is actually sell yourself. I mean, you're saying, I can find these people. Just trust me and come and see it. As a promoter, that's my job. If someone sees Mick Perrin on something, as far as I'm concerned, they know it's quality. That's all you're trying to do. This is quality. Forget what's on TV. I'm the arbiter of that. So as long as you believe that, you will grow.
Very quick question, because I just want to pick you up on you said, because we all know that TV obviously has to be sort of edited down and commodified and slightly changed in a way that live doesn't necessarily have to be. But obviously that exposure really helps with certain acts on selling their tours and getting them out there and also building their audiences. I mean, how do you think there are some acts that maybe that shouldn't happen for? They shouldn't maybe be on TV because it doesn't work for them? And how do you deal with that specifically if you're going to do promotion for a tour or for an act?
Well, I mean, I work with a lot of acts who don't do TV because of that. I mean, you know, I look after Dylan Moran. He doesn't do television. I mean, he you know, obviously wrote Black Books and he did that, but you'll never see Dylan on a panel show. Eddie Izzard didn't do it for many years. I mean, in fact, we never even talked to the press. I think for the first 6 years, we didn't do any interviews at all. So different acts.
I was going to say, Mick, a lot of my clients say, I don't want it. My objective isn't television.
No,
and be all and end all.
No, because you know, with a real artist, and this is a real art. Let's be honest. Stand-up comedy is an art form. It's a high art form, and it's varied. So these guys don't want to be on
just because you're on television
stupid panel
doesn't
shows
mean
that
to say
ask them stupid questions. Why should they? What they prefer is a live platform that no one's editing what they say. It's their right. It's a great. I have this thing that this is a soapbox as far as I'm concerned. This is the only chance we get to say what we think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let everybody say what they think. Yeah. And support live. So
yeah.
Yes.
Does that answer your questions, Trish?
More than.
Really quickly then, because the internet's obviously changed everything, and in terms of promotion, in terms of touring, and in terms of finding venues, a lot of acts, they've decided to go on their own back and contact venues directly, try and book their own tours, try and sort out their own PR, try and obviously deal with everything on their own. Have you found that that's impacted your industry or your end of it? And also, have you found that for promoting as well, because obviously lead times, getting stuff online for publications has made a massive difference in terms of promotion of shows and artists and tours in itself?
Probably not, being perfectly honest. I think it's I mean, there's obviously different ways that you use online, and online's a really big resource, and different acts, it will be more appropriate for some acts than others. Some people have got really big Instagram following, some people obviously it's all about YouTube and they've had some great hits and whatnot, but I guess the nuts and bolts of things like print are kind of old school, so that always has a 6-month deadline. That in itself hasn't really changed too much. I think they're fairly separate items.
It tends to be with the young acts. I worked with this guy called Burnham, who came in to Edinburgh, brought me in for the first time 4 years ago.
2010.
And
2010.
Was it? God. And I saw him online when he was 17. I think he was it his 19th birthday we celebrated here, something like that. But he had 6 million followers then online. Now that's incredible, because the guy was just making records, making comedy, musical comedy in his bedroom. So you know, that for me was the first time I realised how powerful this thing was. And of course, when we came into Edinburgh, you know, we had an instant audience, and then obviously the guys brilliant and everybody else came and so on. But I'd never been able to reach that audience in any other form. But that was, and I think this is how it should remain. Not for the promoters, not for the agents. I think it's for the artist. It's for the artist, almost like a one-to-one. This is your forum. You know, you're reaching out to your audience. I don't think we should get involved. You know, all the YouTubers, etc. We can work with them, but I wouldn't even put my name on a poster of one of their gigs, because I think that spoils what they're trying to do. Yeah, I'll do the work, I'll do the deal, I'll make I'm working with one now, and I'm not even going to say who it is, because I don't want it to affect their relationship with their fans, because ultimately I'm just doing what they don't know how to do, but they're doing the rest.
We're facilitators, aren't we? At the end of the day, it's a very direct, personal relationship with them and their audience, and we help them along the way where we can.
And
what's the difference between promoting acts for tours in Europe to doing it in the UK? Because I know you've been very successful in promoting acts into Europe.
Yeah, we do. We're playing in 26 countries now, and the difference is that it takes a long time, and we've been doing this for some years, especially because we've been touring, obviously, Eddie for 20 years, and working with Eddie, and Eddie's one of these Eddie is one of these people who opens doors and, you know, breaks down barriers both in language and culture, and believes that comedy is a universal thing, which it is. It's a universal language. If you're funny in Germany, you're funny in England, you're funny in Scotland, you're funny in Azerbaijan, frankly, and we play Azerbaijan. So the only difference is that it's about trust. Here we know who the promoters are. You know who the venue managers are. You know that you're going to get paid at the end of the day, essentially. It's a big thing to take on these tours. So we've been building up relationships with all the promoters in all these places. And of course, because in Estonia and Latvia and former Yugoslavia and all of these areas, comedy is a relatively new thing. It may be only 5 years old. So you have a young audience, and the people that run these venues, the small clubs, are comics themselves. So we've been building up this relationship, and that's the best way to be. You know that from your experience. If you're working with a comic, then you're working with someone who artistically appreciates what's going on. They may not be great administratively yet, and you have to kind of guide them in that. But we tend to work in a very civilized way with them, and we don't, even with big acts, we do incredibly good deals for them. We try and make it so worthwhile then, because we want them to grow. And as they grow, and the other thing as well is, just the last point, is that when we do these shows, we bring in a local support act, again, who's maybe trying to do their shows in English, which is why I'm now getting involved in bringing them over here to do their shows in English, because for them it's a second language and a great opportunity. And finally, there's 300 million of us in Europe, so that's why the Americans are suddenly starting to wake up to that fact.
I think something I've taken away specifically from this Fringe is my job as a performer is to create a relationship with my audience, and then to find the person who has the relationship with the venues and with the promotion teams and with that kind of stuff. So we work together, not like as in you work for me and I work for you, vice versa. We work together.
Oh God, we're a team. My God, we're an absolute team. I mean, these are friends. That I wouldn't. Every act I have is a personal friend, and on the phone whenever, and with their family, and absolutely. But it's still a business, so you have to do well as a business partner. But essentially, you're a friend.
And I think, going back to that, one of the things that we have to be careful about all the time with managing people's expectations is to make sure they're not trying to do too much, which can be just as damaging as doing nothing. If you're working with a promoter and a producer, trust that they know which rooms are going to work for you if you've never been there before. Trust your PR that they know which press is going to be sensible for you to speak to. Don't be trying to speak to everybody all at once, because sometimes you can have that one small conversation over here, and that means you don't get this other conversation that would have been better for you. But you've got someone on board who knows which one is going to be better for your sales and better for your profile, so trust them. And you don't have to be on absolutely everything all the time if you've put a team in place who can do it for you.
Ultimately that's why you would have people like us involved. So the one thing that you focus on is your show, and that's the thing as a comic that you can change and make the best it can be, and ultimately is the best example of you to put out there. So you can just stop worrying about numbers and 2-for-1s and speaking to local press and all that sort of stuff, because it's in hand.
I mean, the thing I've always said to my acts is, listen, I do everything except appear on stage. That's your job. But everything else I'll take care of. I can't do that, and I won't even tell you how to do what you do. If you want to discuss it, I'm there and we can. But that's what you do.
Hi, my name's Amy. I'm half of Lamb Comedy Productions. So we are promoters and producers, and we just started out and we did the Brighton Fringe Festival, and we also ran the venue as well as co-producing 15 shows. So I've got quite a boring question about percentages, really, because these are the things we need to know. We've just started out, and we've then got a few sort of up-and-coming artists who came with us for Brighton that hopefully are going to want to continue with us. So the question really is, if we were to sort of take it around the country and do art centres and whatnot and smaller venues, to start with, what kind of percentage are you looking for? Sort of box office splits or rental fees?
You mean from the venue?
Yeah, if I was to go and to, well, you might be able to help with this as well. So if I went to like a small venue in Taunton and
they're pretty much the same. To be honest, it first of all depends on the size of the act.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, if you got a big act, I mean, if I had a Dylan or an Eddie or someone and we go into your venue in Taunton, then we know we'd sell it out. That's a certainty, right? Whereas if you're taking a smaller act, you may do 50% on a good night sometimes. So you have to think about what they're going to get out of it, what the venue are going to get about it, and if you can afford to do it in terms of accommodation and travel, and maybe earn something out of it. So I'd say for a smaller act, a 70-30, that means 70 to the act, i.e. the promoter acts 30% to the venue.
Yeah.
You may then, for a bigger act, get an 80-20. I'd say I think that's as far as you should go, 80-20.
So generally it would be a box office split as opposed to
Sorry,
just
it
hiring.
would be, yes. I mean, I personally, I don't believe we ever ask for guarantees, but sometimes there's a guarantee offered because they know there's going to be, it's automatically going to sell out anyway. But generally I would do a split, but you can take a guarantee and a lesser split. So for instance, you could have a 60-40 and take a small guarantee of say 500 quid.
But then what would your percentage be as a promoter?
As a promoter?
Yeah.
Well, again, it depends on the size of the act, but generally the deal I would do would be an 80-20 with the act, but that's after costs. So, the American system is the same
That's
as you.
about that,
So it's an 80-20 after costs. So you present a budget, all the costs, the potential income, what the recoupment looks like, and it's all there, and at the end of the day...
One agrees it and goes, there you go, that's
when
your
you
bit.
get the final money, you go, well, there you go, there's your 80.
So they, so they get the 80% of the 70%?
They get the 80%.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
I think what you're trying to say is it's like a long-term thing. So if you're going to a venue, maybe take a lower split to start off with, because then next year you can maybe push it up a bit more because you've proven that they can sell out that room.
And especially if it's a smaller act and you do have costs involved, then it might be worth taking a lesser split for a small guarantee. If £500 will cover the cost of your petrol, and if there's two of you staying in a room, that sort of stuff, just whilst you're working out how to market and promote that sort of thing, then maybe that's sort of a better route to go down. Go for a smaller split versus a
Can I just say as well to... Sorry, what was your name again? Amy. I think if you're dealing with very small acts, that then you probably should be looking at a 75-25, because actually you're going to do as much work as I'm going to do for a major act. It's the same work, okay? And it's going to take a long time to even begin to recoup. So an 80-20 would be the top deal that you would make. I would never go as low as a 70-30, but I would think about a 75-25 for acts that size. I think that's fair enough that you should get 25% for working on an arts centre tour.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Other than awards in Edinburgh and things like TV coverage, being on panel shows and anything, is there anything that you see as promoters or like a venue owner might see in an act or in a show that makes you think, oh, okay, this one is something that I want to take notice of, or this is something that I want to start promoting? Is there anything that you see that makes you go, in the words of a terrible song from the 90s? I don't know where that came from.
It's always exciting to work with things that are a little bit different, and to find something that's it's the same thing as you said. Like if it excites you, then you do the best job for it, and that can come in lots of different forms. But it's always nice working with acts that are something a little bit different. So when you take them to the venue, it's not just a man and a mic. It's the Nice Next Door. It's a 5-piece improv group, and they have this lovely sort of inbuilt crowd of people that follow them around. But also anyone that comes to the gig is just won over by a new genre. So that's really exciting to work with, I think. So if it excites you, then that's the thing that picks
If I'm leaving a venue having seen someone and I'm thinking about what they've just done, I know that they've kind of excited me, and cool. I've always been attracted to talent, and talent's talent as far as I'm concerned, and it just shines in whatever form, and you can see it instantly. I mean, sometimes I'm almost beside myself when I see something, and I want others to just wake me up if I'm dreaming. But isn't this person brilliant?
Literally want to run around the streets going.
I'll send it to everyone. I did that with Trevor when I first saw Trevor Noah, and I said, "Come on, is this guy not absolutely amazing?" And of course they are, but not everybody thinks the same as you all the time, and that's the problem with people like us, is that we choose people that we like. I don't really care what you like.
But there are tricks.
Would there be any particular way that they could get your attention, rather than just sending you an email going, this is brilliant? Would you get a press pack maybe? Would you?
Well, clips and stuff of what you're doing.
And I like to see it. I'm a big fan of actually seeing the show. Like put it on somewhere. I'm a big fan for.
I mean, would you buy a painting without seeing it?
No.
So we just have to see.
Yeah, just have to see it, put it on somewhere proactively.
And we've all visited small venues, above a pub that aren't a venue the rest of the time. But if you've been able to get that space that you can invite people to come and see you.
I've been the only person at a gig and took the act on once.
Yeah. One of the things I was talking to Charlotte Austin a while ago from Catface, and she was saying that it helps to have an agent when you contact someone like a PR or a tour manager or a life coach, just because they know the email who it's coming from, and therefore they're more likely to read it than someone independently doing.
I mean,
stuff.
you get bombarded by stuff. You know, I mean, I'm getting over 200 emails a day. I mean, it's just how do you figure out who this person is unless it's a sort of bona fide person? But if it's from an artist, I always reply to that or look at what they've sent. Or I try to. Sorry, if that's not true.
Yeah.
Anybody, please. I've removed my email address instantly.
You know, is already on. You're working with already. Says I have seen somebody amazing, then you're bound to take more notice of that if you've got a close relationship with that comic. So sometimes the comics, like Russell Caine particularly, has got this habit of seeing an act and then just telling his management, I want that actor to support me, even if that act is unsigned. They've come out of nowhere. He's just seen them in a small pub gig, but he will say, I want them on a show. He had a guy called Omar Hamdi supporting him because he saw him at a gig. He had Matt Price supporting him because he saw it at a gig, because he just saw them and wanted them, and his agent will obviously accommodate that. So sometimes there is an element of chance, as there is in everything in life, that you just have to be in the right place at the right time, and somebody notices that.
Yeah. Very good point.
Every year we're also, PR-wise, we're approached by self-produced acts who don't have anyone behind them. And we consider them in the same way as anyone else. We will go and see the show. If it's something that we are genuinely happy about and we feel we can sell, we will work with them.
And it's having the confidence to approach people like yourself.
But also doing your research and knowing what it is that you want from somebody. We often get emails from people saying, I'm coming to the Fringe for the first time, I've never been before, I want to be on the cover of the Times and the cover of the Guardian. How much is it going to cost me? And then my reply always has to be, it doesn't matter how much you pay me, I can't just click my fingers and make that happen. We're going to have to start a relationship and work together. And if your expectations are not going to be sensible, there's nothing I can do that is going to make you happy with the job that I can do. So having an understanding of what you want to achieve while you're working with someone and approaching them with those questions makes it then very much easier to want to work with you, because I can see how my job is actually going to benefit you, rather than you're paying me to tell you no for a month, which is not going to make anybody happy.
One of my favourite things whenever I talk to a journalist is I always say, when you email, just put a line in saying what you were expecting me to do with this email, because otherwise, you just send me a press release. Do you want a review? Do you want a coverage? What do you need from this? And I'm sure from your end that's the same, where you always put in something that says, we're trying to get coverage for this artist, we're trying to get an interview for this artist. Or is that fair enough?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good practice. I think that's true. People get so swamped with things that. It comes back to the classic, the confidence thing. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's a classic thing, and as promoters, I'm sure that's what we live by. If you don't ask, you don't get.
And also have some personal strategies. I mean, the business strategy. Have smart objectives. Is a personal application of those as well. Everything you do should be a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And in reference to the emails, it should be very specific what you're looking for. Yeah. Is it a realistic expectation?
But not too pushy.
Absolutely. Well, attainable, where that A is
because that kind of puts you off. If you get the email that's really pushy, and I'm the bee's knees of this and that, it's kind of something which you instantly know isn't going to work, because that is over expectation instantly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's knowing how to go about it and being building rapport and respect and.
They may not get the front cover of the Times, but they might get a review in it.
Getting and remembering that if you're employing someone as a team to work with you, that you're employing their expertise that they've built up over years.
That's
why you've not had to do it before now. That now's the time you're ready, and you're building on their experience.
Yeah, we like to think we are
putting that trust in them.
Kind of good at what we do. So if somebody constantly says this isn't happening, it's not that you're not trying. It's just that nobody's interested.
It's also your job to know what's going on in the industry. Oh, yes, you can't know everything, but if someone emails you and goes, I am the dog's bollocks, and you know they're not doing that well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if we've chosen to work with you, it's because we believe that you can get there. You're someone that we want to see make that rise and make that journey, but you have to understand that it's going to take time, and we can't just instantly turn everything around. Even people that you see as an overnight success haven't realistically been an overnight success. They've had somebody working with them. They've been working for 3 or 4 years and building things up before they bring it out.
Success.
It's like that overnight success that you reviewed last year and really liked, and the year before that you kind of liked, but yeah.
One quick question I wanted to just pick you up on when you said you're not just a man with a mic kind of thing. As a man with a mic, sometimes I get a little bit paranoid that I'm not offering enough of a unique sound. I mean, I'm doing quite well at the Fringe at the moment. I'm getting good numbers. It's you know, they're...
Sorry, what's your name?
Simon. Awkward on my own podcast. It's okay. It's okay. I'm just gonna edit you out. No, no, but genuinely, like, you do get this. It's not an imposter syndrome, but it's this weird voice in the back of your head going, you know, what do I have to offer you guys? And when I email through to people and stuff, you sort of. I mean, I remember one of my favourite emails, because I've got 2 promoters that replied to this email. I emailed promoters when I was very early on, and I remember putting in it saying something like, here is a list of awards I've failed to win, or something like that. And 2 of them replied just saying, this is the most humble thing that anyone has ever emailed. Because 99% of people just go, well, look, I'm the new act of the blah, blah, blah. And now I'm in a very good place with those promoters because I wasn't a... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's what. Yeah.
But in terms of now where I'm at, where I'm doing okay and I've got a show and stuff, how do you?
Well, now if you send the same email, they'll go, oh my God, he's been around 5 more years. Probably not much chance, is there?
I'll just put more awards in that I've not won. Yeah, but how do you get past that? I'm sure not just men with a mic. I'm sure there are women out there also, and other acts who. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, though. I mean, we've all. There's a lot of performers in it that feel like we maybe are very funny, but we don't know how to market ourselves, and we don't know what we're offering in terms of an angle for what we are, because we're not thinking of it in the same way you guys do. How do we even approach you and say this is what we do to get you excited to come down?
Well, the only thing I would say is that you are what you are. You know, I mean. If I see an act, I don't really care what's going on in your head in that respect. You know, I mean, that's your bollocks to deal with. You.
And that's where a good life coach should come in to help them deal with the bollocks that's going on in their life. And
so okay, you deal with the bollocks, and I'll deal with what's coming out your face.
Absolutely. Good teamwork.
Why don't you turn? Great. Has anyone else got another question? Have you got another question?
Oh no, I was just wondering whether there was a resolution to that, because I thought...
Well, I mean, the resolution is that we can't really determine why they're on stage and where they're coming from. We just listen to what they have to say, and everything that they say on stage should sum up where they're coming from and why they're on stage. So, I mean, that's what I'm looking for. You know, I like intelligent comedy. I like some, an act that's really thought through, every phrase, every word. It's not, there's nothing throwaway about it. I don't want you to move in certain directions on the stage, but verbally, I get off on fantastic language.
Yeah.
And so if I saw you, and I will come and see you now, if I saw you and I saw 15 minutes and there was something there and I thought, wow, this guy is coming from an angle that I haven't heard before, or an angle something I have heard before, but a completely unique way of saying and expressing that thing, then I would be interested, frankly. Obviously, it has to be funny as well, but that's what you have to work out. You're the comic. You're not an actor dinner speaker.
And interestingly, Mick, I think very frequently comics are very good at being funny on stage, and a coach will assist them translate that ability to their audience off stage, and a lot struggle with that, getting that over to you guys in an intelligent fashion. So that's a bridge we often have to cross over to communicate actually their impact on an audience when they're on the stage, which is a completely different experience as to the experience they have when they communicate with you behind the scenes cold off stage, because those communication
skills.
There's
very much a schizophrenic character
absolutely
going on.
Yeah, and schizophrenia is indeed one of the things.
And as a solo performer, as a man in a mic, gig all you can, all the time. Because saying, if you're inviting us to come and see a whole hour, I don't necessarily have an hour free every week to go and see someone who wants me to come and see something. But if you can tell me, the gig up the road, it's 10 minutes away from you, I'm doing 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I can make and I can see.
I mean, I'm based in Brighton, so absolutely. I mean, we'd rather people come down to Brighton, and who doesn't want to come down to Brighton, frankly? So, but like Amee, you get requests all the time to go and see someone's hour, and it's always at 11 o'clock at Soho or somewhere, and you think, well, Christ.
But like you were saying before, some people can do great 20 minutes, but can't do an hour. So how do you then go and see a 20-minute spot? And I mean, of course, you can extrapolate and go, that was a great 20 minutes. They'll probably have more to talk about.
Well, you do go and see. You go and see a mixed bill effect, or whatever, or it could be a preview for Edinburgh, because they are coming to Edinburgh and they want you to know about it. So they've emailed you and said, look, this is what I'm doing, come and see it. And then you will either see that, or you will say, I will try my best to come and see you in Edinburgh.
But I also think the onus, Mick, is very much on the act, like you say, and in terms of fact-finding and digging, acts are their own product, and it's about marketing oneself, and it is about selling. And I would always recommend to get on the phone or email and ask you, where do you live, what's convenient, what time, how can I get absolutely dig.
That's a very good idea.
Open-ended questions, what, why, where, when, and who. Rudyard Kipling said, they're my best friends, they've taught me all I know, they are who, what, why, where, and when. Or something, I'm a bit just jaded this morning because of the concussion, but Rudyard Kipling, those best open-ended questions which invite information rather than, can we come and see me? Yes.
But also reminding me that
or
I
no
saw you.
Closed questions.
If I came to see you in February and I really liked that 20 minutes,
absolutely.
Reminding me you saw me in February, you really like my 20 minutes.
Yes,
will you come and see my hour?
That's why
I'm more likely to make that
important.
time.
Find out where you live. Mick Perrin's in Brighton. What would be the best night to get you into a venue, Mick, to see me at 10 minutes? Ask, have the confidence, and not only humbly receptive.
And I get that. I get that from some people, and others not at all.
And possibly those are the ones you might be good enough to go along to see.
Well, it's easy to wander down to the comedian than it is to go to Soho.
And they could be in Hove or West, or Worthing or what have you. And if they don't put the effort into simply asking and building a relationship with you, to show the effort and dedication to finding out where you're going to be and where you live and where you're likely to go and see them, then they've lost that opportunity.
And we've probably got time for one more question. Anyone?
Sorry,
we got to. Okay, right. We do not have time for one last. Thank you very much for coming on, guys. It's
pleasure.
Really
nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. That was our first live Q&A panel at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival 2015. I hope you got a lot out of that. I found that really interesting. As someone who has completed a show and is looking at doing it around the country at different festivals, but also hopefully doing it around different cities, it was quite interesting to hear from them. Most of them I'm going to have back on at some point, just to do other panels or to take part in individual podcasts to find out more about what they do. So please do subscribe if you want to hear more from them or more from the touring side of being a comedian. The next live podcast will be at the Dave Leicester Comedy Festival in February 2016. If you join the Facebook group, which is Ask the Industry Podcast, and of course it's on Facebook, you'll stay up to date with that. That panel is going to be a load of founders from different comedy festivals, both in the UK and in Europe. So if you're interested in anything to do with that, please do join the group. If you're enjoying this content and you value the podcast in any way, shape or form, please consider putting a monetary value to it and donating. You can do that on the website via PayPal. The website is simoncaine.co.uk. That's SIMONCAINE.co.uk. Or you can become a patron. Patrons get guaranteed seats to all the future live Q&As. So it doesn't matter how much you donate, you just get yourself a guaranteed seat. So if you would like to guarantee yourself a seat, please do. Also, if you can't make the recording, but you have some questions, being a patron, your questions get prioritised and I ask them on your behalf. So it's worth signing up because it really helps out the show. It gives me a budget for future shows and for setting stuff like this up. Obviously, this has taken a lot of effort and a lot of planning, and obviously there's a lot of people's schedules that have been synced up and stuff. So it's really helpful if some of you can donate or if you can subscribe as a patron in the long term. You can do it from $1. It's not like it's a very expensive thing to do. That's 80p an episode. So if you enjoyed this and you felt like this was worth 80p, it'd be really great if you could sign up. And I do 3 podcasts a month, so it'll cost you a maximum of £2.40 a month to keep this project going. And you can set a maximum. So if you can't afford more than $2 a month for whatever reason, I'm not going to question it, then you can set, I will pay $1 a month, so $1 a podcast, but I can only sponsor 2 of them. That's absolutely fine. I have no problem with that. So if you want to find that, it's at Patreon, patreon.com/ facebook.com/Ask the Industry Podcast. If you have any questions, please pass them in the group or find me on Facebook or find me on Twitter or wherever, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you may or may not have. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for sharing, and thank you very much for donating. I will see you next time. Bye.